Are there any other petitions? Are there any questions? Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Disability, Multicultural Affairs, Youth, Seniors, Equality, People, Sport and Culture. Minister, last night you did not vote with the CLP government to remove the needs for the new territory laws to be compatible with basic human rights, including protecting children, protecting people with a disability, protecting women from discrimination, protecting people from race-based discrimination, protecting the rights of people to practice their culture, protecting people against torture. Minister, do you support your government's scrapping of the need to comply and be compatible with human rights to be considered in new territory laws?
Minister for Disability.
Thank you, Speaker. And thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Opposition Leader, for the question. So when it comes to the CLP government, so we got like three key area of focus. So one is about reducing crime, rebuilding economy, and restoring the lifestyle. And when it comes to the Department of People, Sport and Culture, the department that I am overseeing, it's about like I think how we give like equal opportunity and I think have like better opportunity to people. Doesn't matter wherever they come from, whether they're from the multicultural community or whether they're from any community who live in the Northern Territory, we need to have like an option for them to have like an adequate service for everyone. And I don't think that CLP government, what done yesterday was just correcting like some of the adjustment that happened recently. And it's mainly around like I think exactly what the previous Territory Labor government changed over 4 years ago. And I think that's almost exact same action that we have done as well. This is not going to have any impact on anyone. And mainly, and also we will be complying with all the Commonwealth legislation when it comes to the human rights. So I don't think it's going to impact anyone of any of the portfolios that I've been told. And mainly what we are looking on is about like I think when it comes to those portfolios that the Opposition Leader mentioned about like the disability, equality and all, we're looking on about like I think how we can give like better access and opportunity for everyone to have like a better lifestyle where they live in territory. Thank you.
Supplementary, Madam Speaker.
Supplementary, Leader of the Opposition.
Minister, will your government commit to the process, like the former Labor government, to include the compatibility of human rights statement in the CLP cabinet process?
Minister for Disability Services.
Can you repeat the question again?
Certainly. Minister, will your government commit to the compatibility of human rights statement being included in the CLP cabinet process?
Minister for Disability.
It's again like I don't know, it's something that I need to respond here, but I think because it's something they're asking about a cabinet process, which I don't think I'm not going to say that here.
The Minister's completed his question. Are there any other questions? Minister for Drysdale, enough commentary.
Madam Speaker, my question is to the Chief Minister. Chief Minister, our CLP team acknowledges that crime remains the #1 issue facing Territorians right now. In my electorate of Drysdale, while I've heard some good news from local businesses, like the staff at Good Times Bar and Grill, reporting a reduction in antisocial behaviour since our new laws kicked in, I know most residents still go to bed at night fearing their home may be broken into or their car stolen or even worse. Chief Minister, I know many residents in Alice Springs feel the same way. Can you please update the House on how our CLP government is taking action to reduce crime in Alice Springs?
Chief Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for Drysdale, who is a passionate advocate for his community, out there constantly on the ground, recognising that crime is destroying the lives of far too many people, and it's totally unacceptable. I gave an update today on the impact our reducing crime package is having in supporting our police, but there is a long way to go, Madam Speaker. There is no question about that, and I want your community to know, Member for Drysdale, that that reducing crime package was just the start. Next year presents an enormous opportunity for reform across a range of areas to make sure that we are doing everything we can to reduce crime. Right now, Alice Springs is heading into summer, and it's a very, very difficult time for that community who is constantly under siege and bearing the brunt of Labor's failures over 8 years. Their failure to support our police, their failures to have laws that meet community expectation, their failures to deliver consequences and most of all their failures to deal with the root causes of crime, which is why we are seeing extreme and volatile behaviour, dangerous, lethal behaviour in stealing cars, weapons offences. The list goes on and on. But our police are doing an incredible job, and I am so proud to give an update on Operation Ludlow, which has started in Alice Springs ahead of time, recognising that that community is absolutely sick and tired of the high and ever-escalating levels of crime. It started on the 14th of November and it will run right through to February next year. And what Operation Ludlow will do to support the people of Alice Springs who are sick and tired of being victims of crime is surge police in. We will have 2 sergeants and 14 constables there over that entire period of this operation. This will allow more high visible policing, that important community policing. It will target antisocial behaviour and offences against property and person, of course. We've got greater opportunity then to have police at that point of sale intervention, which we know works in that community. The Department of Children and Families will have 6 outreach officers from 6 a.m. Until 6 a.m. every morning overnight. Education Department will have their new attendance officers out, making sure they're engaging with families over the holidays to be getting kids to school in the new year. Public housing officers will be stepped up and work through to 1 a.m. every day. And in just the first 2 weeks of Operation Ludlow, we've had 32 arrests, 2 notices to appear, 8 warrant executions, 31 protective custody episodes, 3 breaches of banned drinker orders and 9 new BDOs, 3 banning notices, 76 licensed premises inspected, 24 infringement notices, and we've implemented a 72-hour police wanding operation.
Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Treasurer. Treasurer, you committed $3 million for free swimming lessons for student initiatives. Now that you are in government, will you confirm for Territorians what the programs will actually cost? Will you give schools a guarantee that it will not be funded out of their global school budgets, which are intended to fund teachers and classroom resources?
Treasurer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the Leader of the Opposition for the question. And we're very proud to be able to roll out free swimming lessons to all students in our primary schools right across the Northern Territory and provide that all ever-present safety net for young kids around water. And it's something that Labor failed to do, Madam Speaker, and it was a commitment that we gave as part of our election promises leading into the election this year. And what I can tell the Leader for the Opposition, Madam Speaker, is that the money to do this program is being found from within the Education Department. The Education Department have been very, very proactive in looking at how their budget works and being able to find the money to be able to provide those swimming lessons. But as this is exactly not my portfolio, I'm going to be able to hand over to the Minister for Education, who will be able to give you some more detail on how this project and how this program will be rolled out. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Minister for Education.
Thank you, and I thank the Opposition Leader for the question, and even the member for Guadja, who seemingly wants to hear the answer to the question as well. So we did have an election commitment of free swimming lessons for all students, years 1 to 6, right across the Territory. That is a $3 million commitment, which, as the Treasurer said, it is going to come from within budget. Just last week, the Chief Minister was out in Palmerston. I was in Katherine, in my electorate, with Royal Life, delivering with schools delivering their programs. This is a life-saving program for all students to have access to across schools. This hasn't been done for many, many years. We know that the lifestyle that we lead here in the Territory, we love the outdoors, whether it be at your backyard pool, whether it be at a lake, in your at a dam or wherever you might be. We have a love of the Territory outdoor lifestyle. So it is very important for these students to be learning to swim, and that will be something that the Education Department is very happy to deliver on, and all schools will be working with the Education Department to get the best program for their schools. I note that a couple of weeks ago in
Take
the
your seat,
electorate...
Minister. What's your point of order, Leader of the Opposition?
Zero relevance. Just to clarify, Minister, in your response you said out of the budget. Are you talking about school budgets or are you talking about the department's budget?
It's not a point of order. The question's been asked. The Minister is answering.
The money for the school swimming is not coming from any of the schools. It is from within the department. So I think we've made that fairly clear. I've spoken on this numerous times in Parliament. And also the member for Barkly has had many of his remote communities come in.
Order.
And I take up on the interjection from the opposition leader saying it's the first time. I think she's got cloth ears, and I've said many times she needs to actually read the plan and see what's actually in
Minister.
there.
Anyone asking a question? No questions? Oh, sorry. Member for Wanguri. You're so tiny over there.
Madam Speaker, I'm sorry to be so short.
My apologies.
But Madam Speaker, my question is to the Treasurer. Again, Treasurer, this morning you released the 2024-25 mid-year report on the Territory's economic and fiscal outlook. The report confirmed that Labor's reckless spending has left our Territory in a devastating position, with our net debt blowing out to over $11 billion. 11 billion, people. That's it. Treasurer, I'm very concerned about what this report means for the good people of Wanguri and how will it affect them. Thank you.
Treasurer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for Wanguri for the question. It's a very important question, and as I said, the report was deemed tabled this morning, is now publicly available through the Department of Treasury and Finance website for all Territorians to see. And I must thank you for the question, because the budget that we inherited from the previous Labor government paints a very, very stark picture, Madam Speaker, of what happens when financial management is driven by political expediency rather than responsibility. This report is the final nail in the coffin of Labor's mismanagement of Territory's finance, Madam Speaker. It's also the final verdict on Lawler's legacy. And this is a legacy of debt, deficits and mismanagement, Madam Speaker. And the outcomes speak for themselves, and the people of the Territory deserve to know the truth. Labor's 24-25 budget was presented with great fanfare, but now, as the mid-year figures roll in, it's clear this was all a facade. They left us with a financial legacy of poor planning, misplaced priorities, and a complete failure to set the Territory on a stable path forward. So what do the numbers show, Madam Speaker? Well, since Labor delivered its 24-25 budget, the fiscal balance has ballooned by $263 million to reach a staggering $2 billion for the first time in history. Under Labor, net debt is projected to balloon to $12.5 billion by 2027-2028. The net revenue ratios, a measure of the ability of the Territory to pay its debts, now blow out to 133% by 2027-2028. Madam Speaker, these alarming projections were underscored during the Under-Treasurer's presentation on the 28th of October this year, which revealed that the Territory would breach the debt cap set by Labor in 28-29 under Labor's watch. Madam Speaker, Labor knew this. Labor knew that they were breaching their debt cap in the 28-29 fiscal year, but were sneaky and just kept it outside of the forward estimates so they would not have to report it to Parliament as the law requires it. What makes it even worse, Madam Speaker, is that the Leader of the Opposition sat in the Budget Subcommittee of Cabinet when the 24-25 budget was developed and presumably was okay with hiding the debt cap breach from Territorians. Quite frankly, Madam Speaker, this is a scandal. Madam Speaker, Labor misled Territorians by over-promising and under-delivering, leaving our economy vulnerable and knowing they were blowing the credit card limit at the same time. The Territorians gave us a clear message, Madam Speaker, and part of that is to fix the economy. I can tell you now, Madam Speaker, we're moving along, we're doing that hard lifting and hard work.
Member for Daly.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Education. Minister, can you advise how you intend to keep the cost of your swimming lessons for Students Initiative to $3 million, particularly when it will involve leasing pools from hotels and caravan parks? Minister, we've heard you state the importance of students being in the classroom. How much time will teachers and students spend out of the classroom to attend these swimming lessons, particularly remote students who will have to travel large distances to get to the nearest swimming pool?
Minister for Education.
Thank you, Member for Daly, for the question. And it does sound like you do not want to have your students in your electorates to have access to free swimming lessons. Shame on you. We have the highest drowning rates in the nation, and here we are with an election commitment answering. I am answering the question, Opposition Leader, and so it is very important that we have all students across the territory having swimming lessons and access to swimming lessons.
Take your seat, Minister. Member for Goyder, what's your point of order?
Point of order, Madam Speaker. Standing Order 20, no interruption of debate. I would like to hear the answer to this question.
I agree, Member for Guadja. Minister, you have the call and you will be heard in silence. Minister.
Thank you. And yesterday we just spoke about the importance of the swimming lessons across all schools with the member for for Blaine, sorry, member for Blaine, with his near-drowning experience in Litchfield National Park. These are the very reasons why we took to the election a commitment of free swimming lessons in all schools. This is all schools have the they can liaise with the department to work out when they will have their lessons, how they will attend those lessons. I was just about to say before I was interrupted by the opposition leader in the last question that recently in the Barkly, many schools of remote communities came into the Barkly region, had their swimming lessons over a couple of days and finalised that with a swimming carnival. Now that is a great outcome for those students. So there is plenty of those kind of...
Opposition Leader.
Opposition Leader, if you'd like to ask something else or if you'd like me to stop answering the question, I'm more than happy to...
Minister, please take your seat. What is your point of order,
School
Member for
carnivals
Daly?
has nothing to do with swimming lessons. The question was around how remote students will be able to attend for swimming lessons, the initiative. That's not lessons.
I think she's answering the question. We're not going to have commentary across the chamber. The minister has the call. Allow her to finish. She's got over a minute to go.
And it's actually very interesting, Madam Speaker, that while swimming lessons in remote communities and across all schools boost attendance, the attendance rates in the 4 electorates of the opposition members is absolutely appalling. And that is a shame on you as a previous government. So,
Minister, take your seat. What's your point of order, Leader of the Opposition?
I'm not sure how rubbishing our electorates and our schools and our
Please
teachers is helping answer your question, Minister.
Sit down. Allow the minister to complete the answer to her question. Member for Guadji, you're talking over me. You're on a warning. Minister.
So, as I was saying, the school swimming program will be rolled out in all schools. They will use pools like, for example, in Mataranka, in the member for Arnhem's electorate, they will be using the Manor Pool. In Katherine, we are using the Discovery Parks pool. This is actually a great thing that is happening in communities. It boosts attendance, which, as I've said, the attendance rates are so low in remote areas. If the opposition leader just continues to interject, I can just sit down and not even answer the question. So the thing is, it is extremely important for all school students to have access to swimming lessons. That is the bottom line. Parents are not going to be out of pocket. We know we've got a cost of living crisis, and this is a good news story for those parents in those remote communities. So if you don't think that's very important in your electorates, well, I'm sure those schools don't have to go. But for the importance of education and getting those kids to school and
expired,
decreasing
Minister. Please take your seat. Member for Casuarina. Enough commentary across the chamber.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
For Casuarina.
Madam Speaker, my question is to Minister for Education and Training. Minister, under the previous Labor government, school attendance rates dropped to shocking lows. Minister, can you please update the House on how the CLP government has delivered on our election commitment to bring back truancy officers to help to get our children to the schools?
Minister for Education and Training.
Thank you, Member for Casuarina, who I know is absolutely passionate about education and increasing attendance rates by our new, again, another election commitment that we can tick off. Mightn't be something that the opposition want to hear about, but it is about acknowledging the shocking rates that we have right across the territory. We went to the election with the commitment of boosting literacy, boosting numeracy, and bringing back truancy officers, and we are delivering on that commitment, Madam Speaker. The opposition leader was actually one of 3 education ministers in the previous government who undersaw shocking rates of attendance. In actual fact, right across, attendance rates have dropped. From 2016 to 2023 in the Barkly, they went from 62% to 46%. In the Big Rivers region, they went from 71 to 58%. In the Central region, they were 66%. Member for the opposition leader might like to actually listen to this one. 54% in the Arnhem electorate, her own electorate. And the swimming program can actually boost attendance. It gets kids excited about getting to school, and that is a great thing. And the Manor have come on board and said how excited they are to have all those remote communities. I pick up on the constant interjection, Madam Speaker, from the opposition leader, which is very parliamentary, and she should listen to the answer. We took a commitment to the election to increase school attendance rates by introducing truancy officers. It was in our plan and no one was left wondering. And even the opposition leader, we have said to her numerous times, she can have a copy of the plan. I'm pretty sure the member for Karama actually lodged the plan here, so it's on the record. We've delivered on that commitment, Madam Speaker. Truancy officers, known as school attendance officers through education, delivering compliance notices, and also have the powers to fine parents who repeatedly break the law and fail to send their children at school. We have 35 school attendance officers across the territory. They are recruiting to 24 extra. I've actually recently been with the member for Karama out in his member for Casuarina, sorry, in his electorate. I've been with the attendance officers out in Palmerston, and last week we were in Alice Springs with the attendance officers. And they have been very well received out in communities. We've actually had some parents coming up and saying, we're really finding it hard to get their child to school, and so they've actually asked for information how they can actually get better support. So that is a good news story, Madam Speaker. The school attendance officers, when I have been out there, have been engaging with the children. They've been engaging with the parents. If the students have said they are suspended, the truancy officers go back and they can check that information.
Your time's expired. Minister, member for Johnston.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is a question from people in my electorate in relation to truancy officers. So it's a question for the Minister for Education. Minister for Education, these parents want to know what power do truancy officers have, what training is provided to them, knowing that they will be engaging with children with disabilities and cognitive impairments, how will they be supported to do this work, what happens when children do not engage with them, and they also wanted to know whether the government has commenced issuing truancy fines, and if so, how many?
Minister for Education.
Thank you for the question. So, as I was saying, I have recently been out on the ground with the member for Casuarina, with the attendance officers, and in Palmerston and also in Alice Springs. The truancy officers, it's about educating parents, talking to students, and giving a compliance notice should they need to. And as for giving the fines, I would have to take that on notice. I'm not sure how many fines have been given out, but I do know that when we were in Alice Springs last week, there was, speaking to the attendance officers out there, the fines that they had given to the people, there was actually a 75% increase of those students going back to school the next day. So that again is a good news story. Sometimes people just need a bit of an edge, a bit of a conversation about getting their kids to school, working out that school is important. It is actually about getting in, learning, boosting literacy, boosting numeracy so that they can actually get a job when they finish high school. It is actually against the law to withhold your child from school. So there's many different ways that the truancy officer can interact with that, whether it be the student, the parent. I did note the other day there was, I heard somebody ring up the radio and they were talking about their child and concerned that their child would be, they would be getting a fine from the attendance officers. We are not talking about people that have special needs. We are talking about long-term students that are not going to school, parents that are not sending their children to school for whatever reason that is. It's not just because they have either gone to sorry business or they've gone interstate on a holiday or they've been off sick for a week. We are not talking about that. We are talking about repeated long-term students that are not going to school. And there are, students out there like that. As I've said, we have the lowest attendance rates ever. In actual fact, with the attendance rates, we have, if I just have a look at that quickly, right across the territory, we have so many schools that are, there's 153 schools in total. 16 of those schools are under 30% attendance, Madam Speaker. 52 schools are under 50% attendance. So,
take your seat, Minister. What's your point of order, member for Johnston?
Thank you, Minister. Part of my question is what training is provided to these truancy officers?
Minister, you have the call.
The truancy officers are people that work in the schools. They have an education background. They are just giving out a compliance notice. But as I said, we make no qualms in we are all about boosting attendance, boosting literacy and boosting numeracy. And with attendance rates like we've got, I'm pretty sure everyone would like to make sure that right across the territory, all students are going to school. With so many kids, 52 schools that are under 50% attendance rates, I think we can all agree that's shocking.
Minister. Thank you. Member for Karama.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Chief Minister. As a former Deputy CEO of the NT Chamber of Commerce and an ongoing passionate advocate for our local business, I note a key aspect of our CLP plan to rebuild the economy is the cut approval times. This plan here, right here, it says speed up approvals. I'm excited how this will benefit businesses in my local community as well as deliver new projects faster. This will benefit my residents in Karama with more jobs too. Chief Minister, can you please update the House on our CLP election commitment to establish an approval fast-track task force?
Chief Minister.
Thank you, Member for Karama, and it was great to get out in the Karama electorate and visit businesses with you recently, and there are so many amazing people in your electorate working very hard to earn a living, to deliver services for your community, to keep their head above water in very difficult times, especially with the interface of crime and antisocial behaviour. So thank you for that opportunity to connect with them, and we heard loud and clear that they want the territory to be an easier and safer place to do business. And that's exactly what we're delivering on. And so as part of our achievements in the 100 days of coming into government, we have appointed the Approvals Fast Track Task Force. This is a great group of passionate Territorians with real-world, real-life business experience. I'd like to really thank Mark Garraway, who's a former Property Council NT President, long-term President of the Property Council. And as part of his team, we've got Michael Buckley from M&J Builders, Tony Smith from NT Link in Alice Springs, Stuart Kenny from Territory Instruments, Dan Richards at Humdidoo Barramundi, Andrew Dalgleish from Foxalicious Fruit, Hermanus Lowe at Lowe Group, and Beck Bullen from Stonehouse and Charlie's of Darwin. This task force is deliberately and entirely made up of the private sector, supported by government in a secretariat sense only. And what I want these people to do on behalf of the industries they represent and the other businesses that they engage with, and all of the feedback that they've collected over their vast and decades of experience, is to make sure that they're looking through what regulatory reform we can do as a government to make it simpler and quicker and easier to do business. It's about decreasing that regulatory burden. So while we have the Territory Coordinator reform, which is for those significant projects, those large-scale, significant developments for the Territory, this is much more focused at that daily grind, the people working hard every single day to run their business, and we want to make it easier. That, coupled with our payroll tax reform starting 1 January, is about making the Territory more competitive. We want people to come here and start a business. We want people who have businesses to have them for the long haul, and we want young people coming up through the ranks in the Territory to recognise and understand that they have an important role to play in our future. And small business, she is the engine room of our economy. Over 98% of Territory businesses are small businesses. So we take our hats off to them. They're working hard every day, and we want to back them in with a competitive Territory where doing business is easier for them.
Member for Daly.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Education. Minister, on ABC Radio, you said that Truancy Officer program wasn't about finding families, but engaging with them first. You said that fines would be handed out as a last resort to parents in extreme circumstances. Communities are telling us that there has been no engagement with families over the truancy fines policy. Madam Speaker, we've also heard the Minister say that parents are responsible and will be receiving those fines, but we have also been told that 15 and 16-year-olds can be fined. Minister, can you confirm that 15 and 16-year-olds can be issued compliance notices and fines?
Minister for Education.
Thank you, Member for Daly, for the question. And again, we are talking about education and attendance, and we went to the election with the commitment of boosting attendance, bringing back truancy officers, which is an election commitment that we are very proud to have brought through. As I said, we have 35 truancy officers right across the Territory, and we are the department has recruited for an extra 24. With the Better Fairer Schools funding, schools can engage in, with their extra funding, they can also employ their own truancy officers should they wish. Whilst I was in Karama a few weeks ago, they have employed a truancy officer, attendance officer at their school. What we've got to understand is these people have a great connection with the community. So whilst I was in Karama, the attendance office there that the school has employed has a great connection with that community, with the students. He's very engaging in the school, the same with the people that I met down in Alice Springs. And as I said, the compliance notices that they had given out, the fines that they had given out, saw a 75% return of those children to school. That, Madam Speaker, is a good news story. These people that are the attendance officers, they actually have a certificate in school-based education.
Minister. What's your point of order, Member for Daly?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. 110 relevance. The question was directly about whether 15 and 16-year-olds can be issued a compliance notice and fines.
Minister, you have the call.
Thank you very much. All students that do not go to school, Madam Speaker, if they are repeatedly withholding, not going to school, their parents are withholding them from school, if they are repeated non-attenders, they will, in the end, after they've had compliance notices, after they've had engagement from the school engagement officers and had conversations about the importance of education, they will receive a fine if they repeatedly do this. We are talking about children that are withholding or parents withholding them from school for whatever their reason for a very long period of time.
Minister, take your seat. I don't think there's a point of order here. The Minister is answering the question, but where are you going with this, Member for Daly?
Speaker, 110 relevance, she's saying they, that's very broad. I'm coming back to the direct question of if 15 and 16-year-olds can be issued compliance
Member
notice
for
and
Daly,
fines, I need that directly
I'm
answered.
listening to the minister answer the question. She might not be referring to what you exactly want her to refer to, but she has generally said all students, and I presume that includes 15 and 16-year-olds, but we will listen to the remaining part of her answer.
50 seconds basically left to tell you in I don't know how many ways you would like to hear it. If you are a student and you are not going to school and you repeatedly don't go to school, you will be, in the end, getting a fine. That is the end of it. So
Silence,
you will
please.
be getting
the
a
minister
fine.
is answering the question.
And what I can let the member for Daly know is that in his electorate, where the attendance rates are extremely poor, where there is many schools that have very low attendance rates. So, member for Daly, do you not want
this? No, this.
I'm confirming, so the minister.
No, you're grandstanding here. Take your seat, member for Daly. The minister has been answering the question. Please continue. 14 seconds.
And with
Leader of
14
Opposition,
seconds to go,
silence.
Madam Speaker, I'd just like to let the electorate officers know that this is actually what we put up with on a daily basis from the opposition. Hence why, at the recent election, you only have 4 members left, and we are here in government because we took a plan to the election.
Take your seat. Member for Fong Lim.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Please.
My question is to the Minister for Agriculture and Fisheries. Minister, we've seen a concerning escalation in illegal fishing boats entering Northern Territory waters over the past few months. Several foreign fishing vessels have been intercepted near the Kimberley coast and near Croker Island, just 250 kilometres from Darwin. Minister, can you please inform the House what is being done to address the important issue of illegal fishing?
Minister for Agriculture and Fisheries.
Thank you, Member Fong. This is a very important question. And, Madam Speaker, I want to start by highlighting that this government takes biosecurity and the threats to biosecurity very important. And, Madam Speaker, and I want to stress that having these illegal vessels in our waters and coming onto our land and walking down the road is a severe and very dangerous threat to biosecurity. Madam Speaker, I think it points out that the current response to these arrival of these illegal foreign vessels is insufficient because they continue to come, and there also needs to be greater action and resources from the Australian Border Forces and federal agencies to deal with this problem because it is a major problem. Madam Speaker, I've addressed my concerns directly with the Federal Minister for Northern Australia, Ms Madeleine King. I spoke to her last week. Madam Speaker, I've also written to the NT's federal members, Luke Gosling, Marion Scrimshaw and Senator Marindery McCarthy, expressing my concerns about this and asking them to do something. So, Madam Speaker, what I do say to the opposition is, can you please ask your members, your federal members, to do something about this? This is a direct threat to the Northern Territory. Biosecurity is a major, major concern, and the members of your party are doing nothing about it. The action is continuing to happen, and yet what happens, Madam Speaker, is we have to rely on the rangers and the sea rangers to do their job, so I'd like to thank them for doing that. Madam Speaker, the NT Police Commissioner has contacted the Border Force Commissioner and the head of the Australian Fisheries Management Authority requesting me more resources in that region. So again, I call on the federal Labor members to back that up and get some action in relation to this. Madam Speaker, I understand the Police Commission is due to meet with the Fisheries Management Authority tomorrow to take action on this. Madam Speaker, just last night, members of the community in Arnhem Land alerted police to a group of unlawful foreign nationals walking along the road, literally walking along the road. 9 of them were located and they were all Chinese nationals. So if this issue, which I say is a very, very serious issue, because we're talking not only about the fishing but the biosecurity, and yet the resources aren't there. And I call on the Labor government, the federal Labor government, to do something about this, because if we get some of these diseases which aren't in Australia, like bird flu and lumpy skin, it's going to have a catastrophic effect on our economy and the Australian economy. The Sea Rangers in Maningrida and also the Fisheries Management Authority, I want to thank them for doing their work, because they seem to be doing the work that the federal Labor government should be doing. They're not doing their job correctly. So I really want to point out that there is a biosecurity threat, And also, not only that, the biosecurity is about the harvesting of fish and sea cucumbers in our waters which belong to Territorians, Madam Speaker.
Member for Nightcliff.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is for the Minister for Logistics and Infrastructure. Minister, constituents of mine in Coconut Grove contacted me concerned and dismayed after your government's announcement that it would be scrapping the rest of the project to underground power lines in the northern suburbs. We know that climate change is increasing the severity of tropical storms and cyclones. In the last serious cyclone, Cyclone Marcus, 29,000 homes lost power in Darwin, some for over a week. Minister, have you factored the increased storm severity from climate change into this decision, and what is the plan for those residents when they lose power in the next cyclone? Thank you.
Minister for Logistics and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for Nightcliff for the question. It's quite an important question because there's quite a story to this, Madam Speaker. Now, the previous Labor government came out before the election and they'd made announcements very, very early on, I think way back in 2016, about undergrounding power, and then did nothing about it for 8 long years. Then all of a sudden, just before the election, popped up and said, well, we're going to underground power in the northern suburbs, and we're going to throw $60 million at it. And then the members out in those northern suburbs were walking around telling those residents that there weren't going to be any poles at the front of the house, and all the power was going to be underground, and it would all change for $60 million. Well, Madam Speaker and the member for Nightcliff, I can tell you now, for $60 million, there is no way in the world that that was going to happen. The plan, and I spoke to Power and Water about this at length before the decision was made, the $60 million that was promised by Labor would have undergrounded some, not all, but some HV power lines along Bagot Road, and that's all it was going to be able to do. To underground power right throughout the northern suburbs would take hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of millions of dollars. And that's what Labor failed to tell the people in the northern suburbs. They made an announcement that we're going to underground power out there with $60 million, and $60 million would not even scratch the surface, unfortunately. Now, I certainly understand the risks here in the top end for major weather events. The top end, of course, is subject to cyclones, monsoonal activity, and I understand why undergrounding of power is a good-to-have thing for the top end. But at the moment, Madam Speaker, the Territory doesn't have the money. And the reason I've had to make this decision is because of this, the mid-year financial report, which shows the level of debt that we are staring down the barrel of, $11.1 billion. I'd love to do all these things in the northern suburbs. I'd like to underground the power everywhere.
Take your seat, please. Member for Nightcliff, what's your point of order?
Yeah, 110 relevance. I'd just like to answer the second part. What is the plan for those residents when they lose power in the next cyclone? Thanks.
Minister, your call.
Yes, I've still got 50 seconds, and I'm getting there, Madam Speaker. But what I'm going back to is that we can't afford to do this. I'd love to be able to do it. We just don't have the money. I've actually asked Power and Water to go away and put something together that would give us a very, very clear picture of what it might look like to be able to underground power right throughout those northern suburbs. And I'm going to be interested to see what that dollar figure is. But I must say that the team from Power and Water and TGen work very, very hard and have plans in place for our cyclone seasons. They are well prepared for our cyclone season should we have power outages across the Northern Territory.
Member for Arafura.
I was still answering a question. I thought there was a point of order, Madam Speaker.
Oh, sorry, I thought you'd finished.
Well, seems I'll finish there, Member for Nightcliff,
Okay.
but I can guarantee that Power and Water have sufficient plans in place to deal with cyclone issues and power across the northern suburbs. Thank you.
Member for Fanny Bay, you've got the call. It's your turn.
My question is to the Treasurer. Treasurer, we've heard again and again about the devastating $11 billion of debt mess we're in, thanks to an absolute catastrophe that is Labor's wasteful spending, pet projects and budget blowouts that were implemented not for the people of the Northern Territory but for their own egos. The interest that we are now paying on this debt is the money that could have been spent in things like my electorate of Fanny Bay, on improving public safety, supporting local schools, health services, or even growing parks and playgrounds.
Silence, please.
Treasurer, one Labor mess that springs to mind, which is one of many, is the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Art Gallery of Australia project. Can you please update the House on the CLP's efforts to clean up yet another Labor mess?
Treasurer. Silence, please. We're going to all listen in silence.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for Fanny Bay for the question. And I really took into account the interjections by the opposition as the member for Fanny Bay was asking her questions, and that shows their absolute disdain and their approach to managing our fiscal responsibilities for the Territory. It seems that they just don't care. And sadly, Madam Speaker, the Atsiaga is another example of that. Now, we released our master plan for the Anzac Oval precinct on Thursday the 21st of November after 8 long years of Labor's mismanagement of this project. And I'll go right back to the start, Madam Speaker, because I think I was sort of there at the start in a co-ward meeting when a senior member of the Gunner government came down to Alice Springs and said in a meeting that we're going to build an art gallery in Alice Springs, and everyone at co-ward was pretty impressed about that. That sounded pretty good. I believe it was a previous CLP commitment. And they sat there, and this is only a month or two after them coming into government, and sat there and told us that it was going to be built on Anzac Oval. It's like, okay, obviously they've talked to some people before they decided to do this, Madam Speaker. But it seems they hadn't, because then they went out to do some consultation, and that consultation came back and said it should have been built in other places, but then Labor pushed ahead and compulsory required Anzac Oval. We're going to continue to build that gallery, Madam Speaker, on Anzac Oval, but we're going to be fiscally responsible about it. We are going to live within our means, because we know that there was $150 million available in the budget to build that. But since coming into government, we understand now that that project was going to exceed $300 million. So that's $150+ million that we didn't have, Madam Speaker, and that was going to go on the credit card. Now, I've heard the member for Guadja say, oh, well, there was going to be philanthropic money to be able to build this project. Well, I ask the members of this parliament, what happens if that philanthropic money didn't show up? That's $150+ million of extra debt that Labor were going to put the Territory into for the sake of their own ego. And there's another one thing that I want to raise, Madam Speaker, and when we released our master plan recently, the Labor Party members and the member for Guadja, again, came out and said publicly, well, I don't like this. This isn't what I envisaged. I'm encouraging the federal government to remove their funding. And Madam Speaker, that's the words of a spoilt child. That's like, if I can't have what I wanted, well, nobody gets to have anything at all. So Labor always talked about us talking the Territory down. Well, here we have members from the Labor government talking Alice Springs down, saying that we shouldn't have development because it's not their idea.
I don't think that was a great timing for a point of order right at the end of the time allocated. So yes, member for Guadja.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, my question is to the Education Minister. Education Minister, you said earlier in question time today that you are going to be fining children. Can you confirm if you are in fact fining children up to the ages of 15 and 16, or are you fining their parents with your truancies? You've also said that you would, Minister, you would be in contact with the federal government about referring families to income management if they don't send their kids to school. Minister, can you outline what communication you have had with the Commonwealth Government about this, who you have communicated with, and what response you have had, or are you misleading Territorians?
Minister for Education.
Thank you, member for Guadja. So first of all, I'd just like to state, because when we were caught up with the interjections from the opposition leader, I did say that the $3 million was coming from the education. It's actually reprioritised funding, so of new money. Yes. So the opposition leader kept on interjecting all the time. So I just wanted to put that out on the record there. So as I've said, the attendance officers will have a certificate in school-based education. They have the powers to go out, and right across the Territory we have 35 of them working very hard out there at the moment, whether they're in shopping centres, around walking down the streets like they do in Katherine or in different areas, housing precincts, wherever they might be, going out into communities. These people are out there to boost the attendance rates right across the Territory. As I've said numerous times, Madam Speaker, the attendance rates in the Territory are extremely low. So what these the attendance officers will be doing is fining parents should they withhold their children from school, which is actually against the law. So we have sent an email off to the federal members. I've also, in conversations, I have had a verbal conversation with Marion Scrimgeour, the federal member, about this. I've also spoken to the Minister for Territory for Families and Children's about income management. So there is many things that can happen for receiving the money from these families. First and foremost, though, I want to point out, Member for Gwadja, this is about educating parents if they don't already know the importance of getting their children to school. No one will be dying wondering that at the last election, we said we will boost literacy, boost numeracy and bring back truancy officers. Those are known as attendance officers.
Take your seat. Member for Gwadja, what's your point of order?
110 relevance. I'm very appreciative of the response from the Minister. I seek confirmation. Have you spoken to the Federal Minister of Education? And furthermore, could you confirm from earlier today in question time, are you fining the children or the youth or their parents?
There'll be no more points of order over the next 55 seconds. Minister, you have the call.
And I think the member for Gwadja is not listening, Madam Speaker, to when I answer the question, because I did just start off by saying the attendance officers are out there. They are talking to parents, talking to students that are not at school. They are issuing compliance notices. In circumstances where necessary, they are issuing fines of $370 to the parents of the children. So then, you know, this is all about boosting attendance, Madam Speaker. As I've said numerous times in this parliament, we have the lowest attendance rates that I've seen. As I just stated before, you know, there are many, many electorates out there that have very low attendance rates. We want to boost attendance rates right across the Territory. And if that means talking to parents, talking to students about this, you know, so be it, Madam Speaker. We need to get kids to school.
Minister. Member for Goyder.
Madam Speaker, my question is to the Minister for Agriculture and Fisheries. Minister, hunting is an important part of the Territory lifestyle for many Territorians right across the Territory, but especially in both my own and your electorates in the Darn rural area. Minister, can you please provide an update on the progress of the infrastructure upgrades to improve access to the southern part of the Harrison Dam Conservation Area? And Minister, can you please inform the House on how these upgrades will contribute to delivering on our government's commitment to restoring our lifestyle?
Minister for Agriculture and Fisheries.
Thank you, Member for Goyder. I know this is a great question because I know you spent lots of time on the northern side of Harrison Dam at Humphrey Barramundi, driving in every day, looking at the floodplains and hear the honk-honk of the goose as they fly around. So look, Madam Speaker, this is a really strong part of one of our electoral commitments. This is another commitment that we have honoured in less than 100 days, Madam Speaker. So in less than 100 days, we've done the crime, we're talking about school, we're also doing, this is restoring our lifestyle. The Fast Track Approvals Task Force has now been announced, so we have covered all three pillars of our electoral commitment, which is the three main ones, but this particularly is about the restoring our lifestyle. Last Friday, Madam Speaker, I was there and I walked across the dam wall myself, and I could see that people had already been across the other side of it because there was a couple of spent shells there. And I could see that it was being used, not only by hunters, Madam Speakers, but also by the rangers who can now access the southern part of the reserve to be able to do weed control and land care control of that area, which was previously inaccessible. Madam Speaker, but this is just one part of a larger commitment about our hunting policy. Madam Speaker, we've also approved grants up to $50,000 for conservation. So that means organisations like Field and Game can come to the government and get a grant up to $10,000 or whatever they want to suit in relation to management of hunting reserves, so they can go and do some spraying themselves, or look at in the Howard Swamp and Shoal Bay to work out if there's some rubbish needs to be collected, to do some work on access control, because that's another part of our electoral commitments, Madam Speaker, and work has started on that. I'm not sure how many people here have been to the Howard Swamp, but the access road into the Howard Swamp is to say the least, is a goat track. I've been there many, many times, and you have to effectively drive through an abandoned mining lease to get there, and the road is really windy, and you do need a four-wheel drive. Even my Land Cruiser has trouble getting there because the road is so bad. So I've written to the Parks Minister about getting that sorted, because we need to make sure that access to that area is up and running. Madam Speaker, we've also locked in for 5 years the hunting bag limits, the 7 geese and 10 ducks, to give certainty to people, because we know that many, many interstate hunters come up to the Northern Territory during waterfowl season to hunt magpie geese and to hunt whistler ducks and black ducks. And it's about the money they bring into the community. They hire cars, they stay here, they go to the Hunt You Do pub for dinner or the Howard Springs Tavern. They inject money into the economy. So this is about a broader picture here of rebuilding the economy, restoring our lifestyle, and the Harrison Dam is going well and it's open for business.
Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And before I ask my next question, I'd just like to give a shout out to my dad, Mick Yubo, who is in the public gallery watching question time and making sure that I stay in the chamber today. Madam Speaker, my question is to the Minister for Essential Services. Minister, the former Territory Labor government was rolling out the 10-year plan to underground high-voltage power in the northern suburbs to deliver a more reliable and safe electricity for residents, schools and businesses. We did complete the schools whilst we were in government. Minister, underground power for Nakara, Waggaman and Allawa was costed, scoped and ready to go. And whilst in opposition, the CLP promised to accelerate the program of undergrounding high-voltage power lines. However, just like in 2012, the CLP government has now scrapped this program. You deliberately kept this from voters. Minister, with the cyclone season approaching, why do you and your CLP government continue to mislead Territorians about your plans, and why are you cutting undergrounding voltage to Darwin?
Minister for Essential Services.
Thank you. I thank the Leader of the Opposition for that question. In regard to this question, Madam Speaker, this sits more clearly with the Minister for Logistics and Infrastructure, and I'll hand over to him to answer the question.
Minister for Logistics and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the Leader of the Opposition for the question. And I actually have oversight of this as the shareholding minister for the 3 government-owned corporations, those being TGen, Param Water and, of course, Jacana. And as I said...
Please sit. Minister, what's your point of order?
With the Administrative Arrangements Order that the Treasurer is the shareholding minister and the Essential Services Minister is the operational, and therefore the operational question should go to the Essential Services Minister.
I think the Minister has the call to refer to another minister of their choosing. I'm satisfied with that arrangement. So, Minister for Infrastructure and Logistics, it's your call.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I said, I'm responding to you, Leader of the Opposition, because I said the decision came across my desk as Treasurer and shareholding minister of those corporations. And as I said, the reason for this was specifically around our budget position, and a budget position that was left to us by the Labor government. And there was nothing hidden about this. This decision didn't come up until post the election, when we were going through with Treasury, Param Water and all of our different agencies about the fiscal position that we found ourselves in. And of course, as I've said, we know from looking at the books now that Labor were going to breach the debt cap in that 28-29 forward estimate period based on their current spending. And that's why some difficult decisions had to be made, Madam Speaker, and undergrounding of power in those northern suburbs, was certainly one of those. And again, it was not a decision that was made lightly by the CLP government. It was a decision that we had to take based on the financial position that we found ourselves in. And we've had to reprioritise funding in a number of areas. And it's always difficult to make those decisions because we like to see things happening in our various communities right across the Northern Territory. But we have to make some hard decisions currently to try and maintain some fiscal discipline because of the position that we have been put in. So that was the decision why the undergrounding of power, and it was only going to be that small portion of power on those HV lines along Bagot Drive. That's why that decision was made. There was no ulterior motives, member for the leader of the opposition. This decision wasn't made until way past the election date, probably 3 or 4 weeks in. Power and Water actually came to me because we were asking all of our agencies to come up with some savings to improve our fiscal position so that we could actually do what we need to do.
Minister, take your seat. Leader of the Opposition, what's your point of order?
Your relevance, I'm just wanting clarification from the Minister around you saying a small section of Bagot, but it was actually 13 suburbs in the program. Just wanting to clarify that, if the section you're talking about is only for the Bagot area or if it's the 13 suburb program.
Minister, it's your call. 14 seconds.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And the $60 million that I was provided by Power and Water was to do HV along Bagot Road. That was all I'm told that the money was for. And I said it was a difficult decision to make. So we've had to make it to improve our fiscal position, and I make no apology for that.
Member for Blaine.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Logistics and Infrastructure. Minister, can you please update the House on some important news regarding the Darwin Port?
Minister for Infrastructure and Logistics.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, recently the CLP government has been made aware of concerns surrounding the fiscal operating environment of the Darwin Port operator Landbridge. We have provided notice to the federal government given the port's national significance and, of course, its significance for the Territory economy. The Territory government has written to Landbridge seeking further information about their financial status and ability to meet their payment obligations. This additional information will guide the Territory government's next steps regarding operations at the port. Our immediate focus, of course, Madam Speaker, is to ensure that the port remains operational while its longer-term future is confirmed. I'm meeting with the federal government's Minister for Infrastructure, Catherine King, tomorrow to discuss this issue whilst I'm in Canberra attending the National Treasurer's meeting. The Northern Territory is currently reviewing our rights, and our future action will be made in the best interests of Territorians. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Leader of Government Business.
Madam Speaker, I move that any further questions be placed on the written notice paper.